All right. Welcome to the live stream. My name's Dan. This is Neomustangs. It's my Foxbody Mustang channel. We'll give it a few minutes to let the chat populate. But I just want to thank everybody for showing up today. I appreciate everybody for coming into the channel this evening. All right, let's go ahead and pause that real quick. All right, we got a new channel member, Robert Dreamer. Man, I appreciate you joining the channel. Welcome to the club membership. It has its perks, and he's at one of the highest tiers. So I encourage you guys to check that join button out. Everything for the channel goes back into the channel, and I do appreciate you, Mr. Robert Dreamer. Bill Pace, what's going on, guys? What's up, Broken Tool? George F. What's happening? So we'll let the chat populate a little bit before we get started. You guys see the thumbnail. We got some stuff to talk about, and I got a card loaded up for you. You know, I like to do a little bit of homework before I do my live streams, etc. But all the guys in B are all the guys in green. I appreciate they're my channel members, guys. I appreciate you and your support. So hats off to you. But we'll give it a minute and then we'll get started. Last week we talked about. We had a little whiteboard out. We had a little fun last week, didn't we? You know, we made this whiteboard. We made this whiteboard up last week. We talked about some pretty important stuff. You know, things that'll keep your car on a jack stand. I thought that was a pretty good one. So we're gonna go ahead and erase that. I think the number one thing was time and money more than anything. Time and work. And, you just got to make time for your Foxbody when you're building it or whatever. So that was like the main discussion that we had last week. I thought that was really good. It's sad to see me erase this. Got all these markers all over it now. What's up, Bama? Want to talk about anti-roll bar install. What about it? All my cars have anti-roll bars. They kind of suck to drive on the street, but, I mean, they don't suck to drive on the street. It's just put a lot of stress on your axle, especially when you got spools. What's up, Staying? 8587, Jenny Man. You guys got some questions? We'll get started here. But today we're going to be talking about, if you guys have a question in chat, just go ahead and fire it up in chat, and I'll try to get to it as best I can. We do have a monetization tab for super chat, super stickers. So if there's something that you need me to answer that's very important, you can always stick it to the top using one of those. And again, goes to support the channel. I appreciate everybody. If you're interested in hats and t-shirts, we're at neomustangs@hotmail.com. We'll hit you up. I think I've shipped out like 10 hats last week and a couple shirts. So pretty cool. I appreciate everybody who does that. So anyways, we're talking on the thumbnail. We're talking about Foxbody myths and misconceptions. Now, there's been a number of other content creators who have, who have hit the topic, and they've hit it really well. I have a whole nother version of pretty much the same topic, and that's like the way content creation works. Is everybody has their own opinions and their own ideas on, the same topic, and that's what makes it work. And I think that's something that we got really going on for us here in this Foxbody genre. So, like I said last week, we talked as a chat and as a channel about, why is your car still on jack stands? And it's just like, give me some reasons why. And we weren't even going to do a whiteboard last week, and it was a pretty fire little video. Tips and tricks. Can I do it on a lift? How do I install? Yeah, you can do it on a lift. You weld everything on the lift, and then you make the adjustments with the, links. Love Neo's channel. Favorite place to be. I appreciate you, Jenny Man. What's up, Fat Boy Fox? What's up, Pimp? What's up, Broken Tool? Anti-roll bar tightens up the rear end. Anti-roll bar keeps the car from actually rolling. So the best thing about an anti-roll bar is basically for the track. But I just keep mine hooked up all the time, and I don't really care. I just make sure that I set my when you set your links, I always set mine to tighten up. I tighten up with somebody sitting in the vehicle. I tighten up the driver's side link, just tight enough to be tight, lock it in, and then I leave 1/2 turn loose on the passenger side. So when it hits straight. You know what I'm saying? And I just ride around down on the street. I don't even take the links off. Hanlon just got a 26 spine input shaft from TKO. All right. So anyways, Foxbody myths and misconceptions. Let's get started here. So I want to say what I'm about to talk about, probably got about 25 bullets to talk about, which is an absolute lot, which if we get to all of them, I'd be, happy. But we're only going to talk for about an hour, hour and 20 or so, depending on the conversation. So, if you guys want to engage in it, you can also engage in chat and let me know what you think. But this is very useful information. If you're just now joining the Foxbody world, or you're kind of new to it, or don't know a whole lot about it with Foxbody Mustangs, this information I'm about to share with you is going to be, you've heard tell of one thing or the other. Foxbodies do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't do that. And, I've lived in Foxbodies long enough and experienced it on both the stock and the high performance end of it enough to know, to bring this content to you, at least be somewhat carnal knowledge about it. But what's going on, Robert Dreamer? Again, he's one of our newest members. Dude, I appreciate you joining the channel, my man. So the very first one, and I'm going to actually lead with this, is the Foxbody prices themselves. I wasn't going to lead with this. It was actually going to be one of the last things I talked about, but I'm going to talk about the Foxbody prices themselves because, there's a lot of myth and there's a lot of misconception around Foxbody prices here in 2022. And it's a hot topic that we've already talked about on live stream, right? But the one thing that I'm going to reiterate from that live stream and from some of the discussions that I have in my videos is that Foxbody prices are always going to stay consistent and go up. Now, just like the housing market and just like the inflation and stuff that's going on with gas prices, which I don't want to talk about in my live stream, we'll talk about Mustangs, but in relation to things go, things get more expensive as they go. You know what I mean? And I think we're kind of on a little bit of a bubble, but I don't think with the car enthusiast genre in relation to directly to that, I don't think that's going to change. And the reason for that is pretty much just supply and demand. It's just a very simple numbers versus numbers. Like, 20 years ago, there wasn't as many people interested in the whole Foxbody racing and resto mod and etc. because there wasn't Cobras and Cobra R's being sold for 100 grand. But now that there's been, other lights shined in dark areas from many years ago, I think that the Foxbody prices will continue to, will continue to kind of level out and be engaged. Does that mean that your car's worth 20 grand? No, that doesn't mean your car's worth 15 grand. But the prices themselves being myths and misconceptions, we don't live in 2002 anymore. You can't find a rear set of black coupe quarter panels that easy anymore, or black coupe rear seat belts, or a Steeda wing, or just to name a few parts. You know what I mean? You just, the original Vortex Celine intake. You see what I mean? The tubular intakes back in the day were like $300. But the point I'm trying to make is one of the very first myth and misconception that people get is that Foxbody prices are going to come down. And I hate to tell you this, and I'm not here to burst anybody's bubble or cause an argument. They're not going anywhere. And if anything, it's just a numbers game. It's supply and demand. It's just the way it works. Let me get into some of this as I keep rolling through. What's up, MJP? What's up, Hanlon Motorsports? Want to give a shout out to Hanlon Motorsports real quick. They're a sponsor of the channel. Always been a sponsor of the channel. We do a lot of business with them, and I want to say shout out to them. They're also one of my biggest club member fans. Yes, sir. What's up, Roberto? What's up, Stephen King? Not to mention the street cred. It's always been there. Nowadays, you can see a clapped out Fox 100K building a bike. So, I just led with Foxbody prices being a myth and a misconception, more of a misconception. Because, again, we don't live in 2002 no more, fellas. There's a lot of more people involved in the genre who enjoy Foxbodies as much as we do. And, it's just a supply and demand thing. And it's gonna be happy that you're involved in, or you own a piece of, a piece of the pie. You got it. You know what I mean? You're there. Build it. Get that shit off the jack stand and enjoy it. Just don't put it in a ditch. What's up, Dan? Everyone, smash that like button. I appreciate you. Appreciate you. So we're going to just listen. When we talk about myths and misconceptions throughout this whole live stream, I'm going to be hitting it all over the place. So we might be talking about engines on one section, and we might be talking about tires and wheels on another. See what I mean? I just kind of randomly shot from the hip and made this list for me. and then we're going to talk about that and engage that in chat. Hey, I've heard the Heritage Vortex system. I might go with it. Yes, Brutal, Nakia over on Brutal's channel just put a big one on. If you go with one, make sure you go over at Anderson Ford Motorsport. Donnie B goes above and beyond for his customers over there at Anderson. So, what's up, Ryan O'Shea? What's up, Ryan O'Shea? So, yeah, they are an investment, Bama, for sure. So, the number one thing that I started with is one of the biggest misconceptions that we're going to start with is the engine. Now, the engine, we all know, only made like 225 wheel, right? And there's a misconception that, you know, the rating of the horsepower, you know, the basic bolt-ons, you know, the engine swaps, the engine's actually a pretty fast car. You know, if you're just now joining the channel, like I said, you know, if you're just now joining the Foxbody world, you know, the original engine's still pretty quick. Like one of the first mods, you know, there's a misconception of it just not making enough horsepower or whatever. But, you know, that's really not the case. You know, 225 wheel wasn't a lot, and it's still not a lot. But if you can do some things to, the car to kind of give it a better, you know, a more seat of the pants feel. You know what I mean? You know, by changing the gear ratios and putting some exhaust on there, it smiles for miles, man. It smiles for miles. So don't underestimate a Foxbody, even if it's just a stock Foxbody at 220 horsepower. So I think there's a misconception that the cars are slow. I don't feel they're slow at all. Just by changing, you know, a few small mods, you could be tickling, you know, 1390s in that and a quarter mile, which is definitely respectable regardless for a stock car. So the next thing that we are going to talk about, and you guys can chime in, horsepower to weight ratio was there for Foxbodies. That's correct. That's correct. Huge shout out to Danny over at Anderson. Donnie, that's right. That's right. Block splitting. That's exactly what I was leading to second. So, huge myth. Huge myth. A Foxbody block does not split at 500. If somebody doesn't know how to tune, or doesn't have the tune right, or you know, it's really more about the tune than it is anything, because that's the driving force behind making power. So just like, what is that? Murder Mitt 313 says, block don't split at 500. The tuner splits the block at 500. If it's not right, the air fuel ratio isn't right, you don't have the proper parts, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. Let me give you a tip of the trade. If you're going to try to achieve big numbers on a stock motor, put some fuel in it. Like, run it with E85, which if you want to run a stock bottom end, or run it with a mix of 11093. I just mentioned that in my other video. I get away with so much stuff in my tuning studio when I'm running stock bottom end turbo stuff that with timing and boost and whatever, the worst case that's ever happened to me was I popped a head gasket a couple times in over the years. So I split multiple blocks knowing that I was probably going to split them because I'm trying to win a race. You know what I mean? So the two blocks that I did split, actually, I really did. I was overboard on the timing to begin with. So I was kind of in no man's land, like 21 degrees. Foxes are great for many reasons. 300 wheels gets you a 12-second car. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. So going in relation to what I'm just talking about with the misconceptions of the engine being slow or the block splitting at 500. Guys, I've seen motors split at 3. It's all about the tune and how it's built, you know, and there's so much information here on the web now that honestly, in YouTube, in Facebook, there's so much information. It's almost impossible if you're not paying attention. If you're paying attention, it's almost impossible if you're not to screw your car up. You see what I'm saying? So anyways, yeah, I think that's a huge myth. Huge myth, splitting at 500. I've made 550 wheel on 3 different engine combos, and 2 of them are still in service right now on other cars. It's just not it. You keep the timing decent, you keep the boost medium, and you keep the fuel right, and I guarantee you your car will be fine. I think one of the big myth, going with the engine as well, one of the kind of like a misconception is you can't run an AC and have a race car, or you can't run an AC. And I know this is kind of going off on a tangent. I won't talk about it too long, but I know the guys down in the South need to run an AC, And for the most part, an AC, all it is just an extra pulley when the AC is not on. I don't even think there's a drag to it. And if you actually took your belt off of your engine and you spun the AC, you will see what I'm talking about. It runs on a bearing system, if I'm not mistaken. And if the AC isn't even on, then you can run AC and still run 10s or 9s or whatever. I've seen plenty of people do it. So, that's just kind of going hand in foot with the engine stuff we're talking about. The smog stuff you probably won't want to run. That's definitely a drag. And if you can shorten your belt up in any way, shape, or form, that's also, one of the things you can do to make it a little bit better. But just, I've learned that the hard way. I don't run AC. I've learned that the hard way, and I've seen a lot of people, very successful with ACs, and they got me right, man. They were like, no, dude, watch this. I'll make this much power. Right. The AC clutch doesn't even engage until it's on. That's correct. Power steering, now that's a different one. Power steering does have a little bit of drag to it because it's a pump. But, I like to run power steering. Got to have my power steering. Can't check your gear ratio without opening the diff cover myth. Yes, we were just talking about that. That was one of the next things I was going to talk about. So I made that video. I didn't want to make it an 8-minute video where you could sell ads on it. I think it still had a couple ads in it anyways, naturally. But that's definitely, changing your gear ratios, knowing what gear ratio you have in your car. Somebody says, hey, I got 373s in there. It's an easy way to check it out. You can check your gears without actually pulling the differential off. And, there's actually a way to check it too while you're driving at about 75 miles an hour. So moving on, and I'm just shooting from the hip, guys. You can't go fast on 4-lug axles. That's the biggest crock I've ever seen. I guess it depends on how fast you think fast really is. So everybody has their own. I mean, 10s are fast, 11s are fast, right? 12s are fast. It's all relative, but I guess it's just relative to what people think is fast. To me, I mean, anything in the 11s, 10s is scary. You could really lose control of your car pretty quick. But I ran 4-lug axles. I think the last time I ran 4-lug axles, I was tickling 990s. And I'm going to be honest with you, not one axle stud bent. But I think that's a misconception. That's a big misconception. Now, is it smart to run big horsepower in 9s and single-digit passes on 4-lugs? No, not really. You probably should start thinking about 3-inch studs and 5/8. Well, if you start tickling deep 9s, you got to start thinking about 5/8 studs, etc. But that's a lot of big race car stuff. But yeah, I've been running 4-lugs for quite a long time. And the main thing, people, the 4-lug axles and wheels, the only reason why 4-lugs really get changed out, I mean, imagine this, is they don't really have a whole lot of, until LMR kind of came along, and I think American Muscle, I mean, I think Hanlon can chime in here because I believe he worked there for a number of years. Until they started really putting out like 4-lug stuff, then like like rep wheels, then that's when the things started changing. Because back in the day, all you really had, I mean, you did have the Bogarts and you did have the ROHs. I mean, but it was just welds, and if you were lucky, Cobra ores. That was pretty much all you had. You had the one or the other. I mean, so your car either looked real racy or your car looked real stylish, and they never could. But the problem is the 4-lug gets a bad rap in the race world, but I think it's more of just a wheel choice, like misconception. Like people misconception, oh, they're weak and they suck. And 4-lug axles aren't good, but to be honest with you, they're just as good as any other axle, missing a stud. 60 seconds to teach how to, yeah, that's what I did. Even on Turbo John's car in person. Ever seen Turbo? Yeah, that's a pretty badass car, that's for sure. Turbo John's stuff is next level, bro. Next level. Hey, Donnie, you think stock valve covers will fit a B31 cam? It absolutely will. Myth number 20, Foxbody has an awesome electrical charging system. Yeah, drag lights were the thing, man. No, not person been following his channel for a while now. Went 5 lug. So basically, I'm not here knocking or saying that 5 lug is wrong. You should absolutely change the 5 lug. If for the style itself, because there's a lot of really nice wheels and combos that you can do with 5 lugs themselves. But I think a lot of people piggyback the misconception that, well, you got to go 5 lug because if you ever want to race or go fast, then you got to have a 5 lug. And that's absolutely that's absolutely incorrect, in my opinion. But again, it's my opinion. So yeah, I wouldn't, Warvane, I wouldn't drive around on a 7.5 if I was in a stock Ranger truck. Oh, you see how small they are? They're very small. This kind of goes hand in foot with what I was just saying with the misconception. Again, guys, everything I'm going to be talking about is experiences that I've had in just my own basic opinion. It's not, just because I feel one way doesn't make it a fact, right? I'm just kind of sharing my experiences with you in, in the Foxbody world that I like to think I know a little bit about, just like you do. So you have to convert to 5 lug to be able to stop. Like, let that sink in. Like, got to do a brake upgrade. Got to do rear disc. I disagree with that. Not that I'm telling you to do it, but you can go into the 9s on stock Fox brakes. Let's call it upgraded, at least upgraded rotors and pads. And, and be able to stop for the most part. You might stand on your brakes here and there once you get up past 140, but, stock brakes aren't the best. I'm not saying that they are, but there's a misconception that, they're, you can't stop past like 1090s. And that's absolutely not the case. However, as soon as I put the Cobra brakes on my white car here and did all the proportioning valve, and I actually got 9-inch ends with the 9-inch brakes in the back, my car stopped. My very first couple passes in that car, I about hit a wall because my car would literally nose over because, I just put a little bit of light pressure on it, and the car would nose over enough to rub the tires on the fender. So wasn't quite used to that stopping power. So I guess it's just me. But, you don't have to convert to 5 lug, or you don't have to convert to bigger brakes in order to stop, or 5 lug like the SN95. However, like I said, for wheel choice, it's kind of a piggyback for both, because you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You know what I mean? You get better braking power and better choices, plus you get better wheels. So the misconception is that doesn't work. That's the misconception, is the stuff still works. So if somebody who doesn't have the money to change over to 5 lug and wants to stay 4 lug, there's no problem with that, in my opinion. So moving on down the list. Let me see here. Hey, 89. I saw another channel once where Foxcast sticker would add. You're silly. Yeah, each sticker adds like 1 horsepower. So, okay, moving on. Okay, so this is going back to the engine. This is going back to I don't care if you're running a stock block 302. I don't care if you're running a 306. I don't care if you're running a 308, 331, 347, unless your camshaft is calling for it, which even if the camshaft had the HR symbol at the end, I'm going to tell you right now, your block does not make power past 7, period. A stock bottom end 302 motor is pretty much out of steam at around 5,300, plus or minus, regardless of what. Now, there is ways to make them kind of wind out a little bit, but I'm talking peak power. You know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty sure Donnie B can probably piggyback, and he does a lot of dynoing in chat here from Anderson Ford Motorsport. But I'm pretty sure I never ran an HR cam for the most part. I did once, and it did make good power. But a stock bottom end 302 rebuilt, whatever, it's just not going to happen. Like, I think the 347, you could probably wind out a little bit more with a good camshaft. But like, people take the stock motors and they just put an HCI on them, and they rev the shit out to $7 grand, bro. That car stopped making power 1,500 RPM ago. So I've always made it it was always efficient for me with my dad's car. And I was always lucky to go to the dyno and know where my peak horsepower was. So knowing where your peak horsepower was can give you an average of where you want to shift, and your shift points stick or automatic. You see what I mean? So what do you say? The almighty B303 can lay. I got brutal Foxcast and Neo sticker on my car. Yeah, she's not sure what channel she's supporting right now. Do you, smart? Just kidding. So, anyways, 7K RPM. Nah, you need to put a rev limiter in that car, and you need to stop revving that car at 7 grand, because it's not making power past 53. So I don't know why you would want to do that. 331 spinning it faster than 347 or 363. No, 363 spins quick. So let's give you an idea. My 408 stroker does not like to make power past 57. I think we peak at 57 or 58. You'd be surprised. A 351 base motor has a big crank in it and big mains, and they're not a real high RPM spinning motor naturally from something that you build like a 308 or a 408 or even a 351 rebuild. So how do I feel about a 427 stroke? They're an absolute monster motor. Absolute 427s are badass. So again, if you got a stock bottom end motor, 306, 302, 308, if you go 40 over and you know, there's nothing wrong with your motor. Just set your rev lim to like 6K. Don't go past it, because you're just wasting your time then. I mean, because if you're going to shift at higher RPMs, then you're not even going to be in your power band when your clutch actually re-engages. See what I mean? You want to build power again. So when you shift at 6, go down to 42, you build power through 53, which is your peak. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? And this goes for just normal driving. I mean, I wouldn't be shifting at 6,000 on the street anyways, but it depends on what kind of summer night it is. The tack was off. Okay, so going back into chat here. What do you guys think of this? I mean, I know I didn't put anything on the whiteboard, but I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I'll let you guys chime in here in a minute. We'll do the whiteboard stuff. A T5, number 6, a T5 transmission brakes at 300. Oh, man, that's a big misconception, bro. Come on. T5s do not brake at 300. However, T5s are on borrowed time past 400 for sure. You can make a T5 last if you just simply rebuild the T5 or have it rebuilt and reinforced or whatever. You can make power through 400 and safely drive it on the street. T5s are actually pretty strong if you actually know how to, if you take care of them. Third gear is the one you'll brake first. So if you baby third a little bit, knowing it's weaker than all the other ones, T5s don't brake at 300, bro. But there are people out there like bang the shit out of the gears. There's nothing wrong with that. Your next step up from a T5 obviously would be a TKX. If you actually spent your money on a Tremec 500, 600, you better got a deal on it, because the TKX is a badass transmission. So yes, I need a dyno pool, find out what the F-cam is doing on my 363. Roll out to a dyno, bro. They brake at 305. As long as the cluster input shaft are shimmed correctly, there's a big one right there. This guy right here just said, billet cluster, as long as you, dude, I got dad's transmission over here on the bench, or we had it on the bench when we were doing the Ram upgrade so shout out to Ram for hooking me up with that power grip. Anyways, when I had it on the bench, it didn't have one thou in it, man, not one thou. It still had the billet in the back, and I had the brand new cluster. I had the brand new cluster support in it from before. So, yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've broken. Listen, now T5s are weak. They are weak. But if you have a good transmission and you want to get some longevity out of it, get the new rebuild kit in it. Get a billet support plate. Just trust me when I tell you. Should ask Cousin Paul what breaks transmissions. That's correct. Cousin Paul in here hiding. All right, moving on. This is a big one. Carbs are slow. No. Actually, to be honest with you, carburetors probably, apple for apple, would probably beat an EFI carb. And I think I'm not the only person that would think that. Now, the biggest misconception behind a Foxbody carbureted car is the fact that back in the day, when people didn't want to deal with sensors and mass air and intakes and EFI, putting a carburetor on a Foxbody was kind of the budget race thing to do. That, you know, they kind of got a bad rap for people not understanding fuel injection, and that's just fine. But that didn't make the carburetor worse. You see what I mean? I don't even run carburetors, but I know enough about carburetors and been around them long enough that carburetors aren't slow, and the misconception of them being, you know, not worth putting on your Foxbody in a pinch, I think that's a big misconception. I think if it's something that you can do and you're good at, and I think if you can tune your carburetor into your engine, that motor's going to run mint for a long time. So carb swap, listen, this is what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you this. If you're going to carb swap your Foxbody, do us all one favor. Do me one favor. Do Neomustangs one favor. Don't cut your harnesses and save all your stock EFI stuff. Because if I was going to buy a Foxbody from somebody and it was carb swap, I'd be a little disappointed, but I would like to see how well they tune their carburetor in, throwing a little wideband on it or whatever. But there's not a lot of people out there that take that time to do that. But those who do get a lot of gain from it. But if I was to go to buy a Foxbody and see a carburetor, and he said, oh, yeah, here in a box, I got everything fuel injection I took out of it, that's perfect. That doesn't devalue the car one bit. Oh, I didn't cut any of the harnesses too. So huge misconception. And do us all a favor if you are going to do that, which you do. You build your car, you get it off the jack stand, man. Build it the way you want to build it. Just keep all your stuff. I'm building my first carb currently. Yeah, so I do plan on, and I'm not saying that because I want to discredit fuel injection, because you know I'm a fuel injection guy. I do want to kind of dabble in the carburetor world a little bit with a big block. We talked about the 460 a little bit. It's a little bit hard to find a good 460 right now. So that'd be the engine I would like to mess with on a carb setup. So my buddy's got a 460. He runs out at the track. You guys seen the yellow coupe, Timmy Combs, the sheriff, over on our channel. And it's just, that car just impresses the shit out of me. I mean, I told Timmy, I'm like, bro, you just throw a 50 shot at that 460. That thing's going to run 950s. He's like, I'll pass. So, yeah, carbs are not slow. Speaking of cutting wires, where can I buy the dang connectors for the engine interior? NPD. Speaking of four cylinders, the car is a four cylinder, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. I don't mean to say that to you. Check this out. Big misconception. It's on the back side of my card. Yes, sir. Four-cylinder carbs or four-cylinder Foxbodies aren't worth shit. Or four-cylinder Foxbodies are only good for parts. Actually, guys, four-cylinder Foxbodies, yeah, it may say four-cylinder on the title, but bruh, it had a four-cylinder most of its life. Like, that's a really small motor that didn't do shit for horsepower. Now, 2.3 guys, give me some slack. You know, there's some really fast 2.3 stuff out there, and you can make that motor badass, but it's not common. So if anything, if you found a four-cylinder coupe that was in good order, you probably found a coupe that hasn't been all twisted up yet. You know, with power and power shifting and beating the snot out of it. So I think that's a huge misconception, because 4-cylinder cars that are converted to V8s, that tells me that the car didn't spend most of its life, you know, doing a Brody. You see what I'm saying? So, like, literally the only thing on a 4-cylinder car that's any different than a V8 for the most part is the axle swap, the gas lines, and the suspension-ish. You know, of course the engine, but, you know, the engine harness has to go with that. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. So just what Andrew said, not true. They are straight and typically not bent. Good torque boxes. That is what I'm trying to tell you. So there's a big misconception that, oh, it's a X 4-cylinder car, blah, blah, blah. No. 4-cylinder cars are really good rollers for a V8 swap or a Coyote or Terminator swap or any swap for that matter. Trust me, it's mint. So consider, you probably never thought about that. A lot of people don't think about that. You know, you look at a 4-cylinder car, or you look at a Foxbody and say, yeah, it's an old 4-cylinder car. The first thing I think of, did he change his brake booster? Did he change his, you know, his front K member and did he change the axle? Did he run the brake line right? Did he run the fuel lines right? Because that's pretty much it outside of that. So I did want to do that. Yeah, already. Okay, number 8 on my list, bro. Okay. Take a shot of water. Again, like I said, I'm gonna say this another time here in the video. You know, this is all stuff from experience. This is just conversation about Fox bodies. Some people may agree, some people may disagree. I'm perfectly okay with that. But there is some rhyme or reason behind what I'm telling you. You know, the way I feel about things don't make them facts, right? So we're just here BSing about Fox bodies. So now everyone is going to ask $20K for a 4-cylinder. No, that's not what I meant. It makes for a good start. 4-cylinders are not worth more than a V8, but if you can get one that's been not molested on the street, you know, that's not been beat on with torque boxes or whatever, then your 4-cylinder Fox body would definitely be a good base for a good swap. So that, you know, back in the day, I'm gonna tell you guys, back in the day, you know, I'm 44 years old, and I'm gonna tell you right now, back in the 90s, that was a big deal. I mean, back in the 90s, to me at least, you know, early 2000s, because Fox bodies were aplenty. And if you had a 4-cylinder swap, usually they either came with, you know, somebody didn't bother changing the brakes, which they had small brakes on them, and somebody didn't end up changing the springs, and they always squatted in the front, and they had these, you know, these big, you had this huge gap between the rear tire. I had some bad experiences with some carbureted swap cars. Not just carbureted. I don't think back in the 90s, like, nobody did a 4-cylinder EFI conversion. Like, I did my own, and I did okay the first time, but the second time I did it perfectly. And that's how I kind of learned how to work on Fox bodies. I was doing a 4-cylinder to V8 conversion. It was pretty cool. Yeah, I probably got something I can get to you, George. You talking about that CNY, that guy posting with that T-top? Now, I did want to say that there is a T-top roller that I think George F's friend, and this is off topic, there is a T-top roller that he's got. Now, I think that car was converted to a T-top, though, so. Verts, convertibles cannot race, change my mind. Well, I've seen a lot of people talk about, you know, how much they dislike or don't like convertibles or whatever, but some of the fastest Fox bodies I've ever seen race here in Northeast Ohio were convertibles. A buddy of mine, Mike, down in Akron, probably had one of the baddest ass turbo convertibles for so many years. It was just unstoppable. You know, the car was just so fast in the 8th. He really did a good job with that car. And convertibles, when they're tightened up with the cage have almost a better underbody than a regular hatch or coupe for that matter. They're just tighter. There's more sheet metal involved. They're obviously a little bit heavier, but like I said, if you like full caged or 10-foot caged a convertible, they actually end up not being real bad race cars for the most part. Now, when I say race cars, I don't mean like, running 7s, bro. I'm talking about running 10s, running 11s, running 9s, whatever. So if you got a convertible out there, there's a misconception that, oh, you can't race that car. That's bullshit, because I've seen a number of convertibles gap people that just are absolutely straighter than an arrow. So in my opinion, I think convertibles are badass race cars because, like I said, they got that extra reinforcement in the body. So once you tie that body all up, converting a convertible to a coupe, who thought about doing that? I mean, people have done it. Just saying. So I think, talking about a myth and misconception, I think convertibles can make very, very good street race cars, with daily drivers. They may not be to be honest with you, convertibles were the Foxbody that was sold the most. Hate to tell you that. All right, so can you change out oil pump and oil pan without taking engine out? No, unless you have a lift and you know how to drop the K member. What's up, GS 462? It's good to see you, man. Good to see you. All right, so what I'm gonna do right now is I still got about 10 or 15 things to talk about. I can't believe we're already 40 minutes into this live stream. Guys, check out that join button below, man. Appreciate the guys in green are my club members. They support the channel. They get early viewing. They get green names in the chat, which I'm on live chat all the time, and they get a number of perks. So, you guys give me something. So we're gonna do that on a whiteboard. You guys give me one of the biggest myths, and if I see it mentioned more than once or a couple times, I'll write it down. So what's a big myth that you guys think in the Foxbody world? I love T-top foxes, Jeff. I'm gonna engage in chat now. I'm gonna stop talking for a few minutes, and I want you to tell me. Give me a myth. Give me something that you guys think is a huge Foxbody myth, and keep it Foxbody. Notch is better than hatch. Uh-oh. Do you need to use the bottom with the tubular upper? Foxbody can't corner well. Interesting. Come on, I got 115 people in chat. Let's go. Death to one-piece headlights. Give me a minute. Hatch is, oh yeah, hatch gang, okay. Give me one thing that you guys think is like a myth or misconception that we're talking about today. Again, this is a topic of conversation that happened, that a number of people have covered before in the past. And, everybody has their own different opinions on what's misconceptions and what's myths. So, I'm just kind of giving it a different hit. My hit is different than somebody else's. Altezza lights, man. I used to own some of those. Manual is better than auto. Auto versus manual. Okay. Uh-oh. Misconception. Can heads be bigger in stock? Cleveland is better than Windsor. Mexican block. Okay. We're going to go with this one first. Auto. Or wait, it was manual, right? Let's go with that one. And I'll come back and I'll, So number one, manuals are better than autos. And that's not on my list. That's a misconception. Manuals, in my opinion, are funner than autos, but there's something to be said about an automatic. I do like just getting in gear and being able to drive and not worrying about shifting or, engaging a clutch. Now, there's a lot of people that would disagree that, you know, hey, I'm a stick shift guy, so I don't have auto cars. But there is something to be said about a good C4. There's something to be said about a good AOD. You could put 4R70W internals in an AOD with a good pump and a good input, and you can make all the same power that a TKX can hold and all the same power that a T5 can hold, and have a little reverse valve body, a little trans brake on there, and just it'll be just consistent as hell. So manuals versus autos is definitely a huge battle that can never be won. Like, so there's not even anywhere to, they both have their ups and downs, and one's more preferred than the other. That's a good one though. That's a good one. Manual is better for my wife. Myth. You can't use your stock fuel lines when you make good power. We're about to talk about that here in a second. There's something to let go of the trans brake. Right. So I'm going to give you guys one next. So as he was just saying, stock fuel lines can't make power. I'm going to add that to, where did I have that at? Yeah, let's talk about that. Stock fuel lines are, and I'm going to actually give you guys an Easter egg right now. Stock fuel lines, it's a huge misconception. Now, I'm going to piggyback this with another thing I'm going to say too right afterwards. Stock fuel lines are good to like 500 wheel, depending on what injector you got. So the bigger your pump, the more you have it wired, right? The bigger your injector, the more you can get away with in the fuel lines. Does that make sense? If you're running a 255 pump that's not wired, and you're running 42-pound injectors, you are going to be done with fuel at 450 because your pump's already not pumping at 250. If you don't wire your pump, you're not pumping at 255. Like, there's not enough, like back in the day when they created the Foxbody, I think the biggest pump they were coming out with at the time was like a 190. Now, even a 190 at stock wiring and a 75 amp alternator, even a 190 was only pumping at 150. Does that make sense? That's why I make a big deal about wiring your pump and getting some amperage back there. You're basically, they came out with the whole millions of dollars idea with the Kenny booster pump. Remember the Kenny Bell booster pump? Because basically it took your pump and actually fed it the proper amperage that it needed to see. So all of a sudden this pump started working really well, and it was just this nifty little device that you plugged into your car, and it put like 18 volts to your freaking pump. Crazy. But stock fuel lines, let me give you the Easter egg that I was going to tell you. You want to make a little more power at the rails? Go get a 94-95 stock set of fuel lines. I mean, if you can get the whole fuel line put in your Foxbody and it's just right there in front of you and it's free, do it. The feed line on an SN95, 94-95, 5.0 is 3/8. And the feed to the rails is 3/8. And the rails on an SN95 are actually an upgraded mod, junkyard mod, for a Foxbody. So, yes, you cannot tell me that you can't make good power on stock lines. We made, I think the most we made was 570 wheel on a Mustang dyno with stock lines, but we did it with a 340 wired pump, stock rails, stock lines, pressure regulator at 45, and we did it on 60s. And the 60s were out. They were out at about 5.7. So yeah, there you're definitely, I mean, is it a weak point? Yes, but the Easter egg and all that is you can make good power on stock lines for sure. The one I got, another one I was going to talk about is you have to make 700 wheel to get noticed. There's something to be said. There's a big misconception on horsepower. A lot of people, and you'll see people talk about how horsepower is like, you know, it's just a number, guys. So you'll see a lot of people talk about horsepower being, you know, the ultimate number. Like everybody's chasing a number. In this day and age, it's 2022. Back 20 years ago, making 500 wheel was a big deal. And, you know, you were running 11s and 10s, and any car that ran 9s was just not to be messed with. And as technology came in with binary editors and the handhelds and the tweakers and new engine builds and combos and stuff like that, and things got, where does it end? It's almost like horsepower is like an inflation number. Like it just won't stop growing. And one of the biggest things I want to tell y'all is 400 horsepower is hella fun on the street, period. Have all the fun in the world. You don't got to make 500 to beat a 400 horsepower car. You just got to make that thing hook. If your car goes A to B and it makes 500 horsepower, it's going to be a tough car to beat on the street. Red light to red light. Not that I'm telling you to race anything on the street. I'm just saying in general, your car is going to be fast. I'm telling you, horsepower is like an inflation number. With the new Coyote motors and the power that a Terminator motor can make, and some of these Godzilla motors, it's like the bar has been raised so high that the expectations are just, they kind of go with it. You know what I'm saying? So is it a misconception? You don't need, I've seen many cars get gapped that make 700 wheel, Scat Packs and Dodge Demons and Hellcats and whatever. I've seen them get gapped by a 450, 500 horsepower Foxbody that wasn't stripped out just because the car ran right and it hooked right. Does that make sense? Across the world, stop growing. You're silly, bro. All right. I make 700 wheel in a Foxbody, and I probably utilize maybe 2/3 of it. Maybe. Now I got a video coming up with the tires that I bought for it to try to handle that, and that's got a big footprint on the back of the car, but it still might not make a difference. So, okay, give me another one. Give me another misconception with Foxbodies that's not on my list thus far and coming up. Myth or misconception? Let's go. 330 horsepower, 410, 456. Yeah, man, that's nasty. Have all kind of fun on that shit. What? A good 11-second car. Yeah, we talked about blocks not splitting at 500 earlier. E303 cam. Give me one. Misconception, LS swaps are cool. Not even going to talk about that. Stock headlights are great. Man, stock headlights are terrible. Stock headlights look great, but like the lighting in them is terrible. Like, I think there's an LED. I think there's a good LED option nowadays with good technology. Man, my lights were always so dim. Cutting springs ruin ride. That is a misconception. That's a good one. I'm waiting for a good one I can write down. 1-piece versus 3-piece headlights. Why does everybody talk about taillights and headlights tonight? Well, somebody said something about death to 1-piece headlights or something. Electric fan versus clutch fan in any gig. Okay, that's a good one. Misconception. I'll take that one. I'll take that one and talk about it. Electric fan versus clutch. Now, when I say clutch, I mean just the stock fan. Okay, we got two. I got two right there. Okay, so hang on a second. Hold on with you guys' ideas you got going on right now. Hold on, man, because I don't want to miss a good one. So electric fans actually pull more CFM than a clutch fan, but a good clutch fan, even on a turbo car, can cool your car down just fine. The main thing that a lot of people, and they take them off all the time, is they got this little air dam piece. Like you see that little black plastic strip that goes underneath of your rad core support. A lot of people take them off. They ruin them putting a jack stand underneath or jack underneath them, and they just fall off over time or whatever. But a lot of core supports on Fox bodies these days are all jacked up and bent. I'm got one on my white car. It's not very good either. But what I actually had to do is you have to make sure that there's a gap between your front of your radiator and where your is it a condenser or evaporator? I think it's whatever. If you don't have an AC, make sure there's a good gap because that air dam comes in and the air comes up in. And the reason why I'm even talking about that is when everything's working and your clutch fan is working and your air dam is working and you're getting good air, you got good coolant flow, your car will cool down just fine. So I've seen a lot of electric fans, seen a lot of people, you know, take clutch fans off because they had the belt routed wrong. Belt being routed right is a big one because of reverse rotation water pumps. I can go on and on and on. A big advantage for the electric water pump is when you're sitting in a red light or you're sitting in hot weather, at least you're getting all that airflow still consistently regardless. Do you see what I'm saying? So is it a misconception that electric is better than clutch? Absolutely not. Because if anything, an electric fan is more bogs your electrical system down. I mean, I wouldn't even really run an electrical fan unless I had some sort of good 3G upgrade on your alternator. You see what I mean? So clutch fan can get you well into the 500s and cool your car down, no problem. So that's a good one. Stock headlights are great for my 4 eyes. Okay. Myth, you can't tune an A9L. Oh, you can tune an A9L, my man. I got one behind me and it makes 720. All right. You can only, man, I scribbled everything. There's a big misconception that you can't stick a big wheel or big tire on the back of a Foxbody. Like I said, these guys, you know, this stuff is just random stuff that I wanted to talk about tonight. Huge misconception. We'll come back to that, Murdim. If you haven't watched Brutal's channel in my own channel, when we talk about stance and big fat tires in the back of our Foxbodies, it really has to do with back spacing more and being able to modify your axles. And what I mean by modify is putting larger studs in the axles. So I run an array of different spacers, and I run an array of different length studs that allow in tandem with the back spacing of a good fat 10-inch or 10.5-inch wheel, or even an 18, will allow you to run a Foxbody wheel in the back. Like, there's a misconception with it because most people just want to slap a wheel on, not do anything to it, and it work and look good. But to be honest with you, there's a huge misconception with how you fit and stance your car and how you fit and stance your wheels, which may require you to run. The equalizer is very simple. It's a good spacer and some longer wheel studs, preferably ones that are like ARP. Don't run with Moroso stuff. I bent the shit out of all that stuff. I mean, some people may have had luck with it, but when you're dumping clutches at 4,500 on 700 wheel, you got to have a good a good stud. But regardless, you can fit. I got a 315 3517 that is on the back of my Foxbody. It's a street tire too. It's not even a drag slick, and the only reason why it even sits right at the lips is because I have the clearance for my 3-inch tailpipe. So there's a misconception about wheel size. You could stick a pretty fat wheel on the back of the Foxbody and look awesome. Just got to do some math, man. Just got to kind of do some fitment issues or whatever. So, all right. So here's a good one right there. Here's another. You can't run solid versus poly. See that? That's a good one. Who said that? Pimp has a good one. Myth, you can't make power with a stock cam. Hold on a minute. We'll get to that. Solid versus poly. So there's something to be said. Like, there is a myth, but I'm not going to myth bust it with the solid mounts because I thought about putting that on the list earlier and I didn't. You can run solid mounts in your car. I run solid mounts in my white car and my black car. I don't, but you'll feel more vibration through your car. Not enough to really notice unless you're trying to notice it. As long as you run a poly in your trans, like your trans mount, as long as you run a poly in your trans in the back, then you still get that little bit of, a little bit of movement that you do need. Because pretty much right around about 500 wheel, you start ripping motor mounts apart. It doesn't matter. I've ripped, I don't know how many energy suspension poly motor mounts apart. So that's a good one, man. Solid versus motor mount. Pimp had a good one. Where we at? Where's he at? What did you say, Pimp? Bring him back to me. Cross member mount. Yeah, the transmission mount. You got to run a poly transmission mount. I don't care what mount you have in the front. It just has to happen. You can't make, oh, he made, can't make power on a stock cam. That's absolutely incorrect. Put that on the list, boys. Keep them coming. Oop. Can't make power stock cam. Can't make power on a stock cam. That's absolutely bogus. Actually, the stock cam with 1.72 rockers on a simple GT40 build can make block splitting power on 18 degrees, good fuel, 14 pounds of boost, and running the shit out of it at the track. You could do that on a stock head. Stock cams are pretty badass. For being a factory Ford cam, you guys might laugh and say, oh, they're not, but you know what? B cam is the step up to that, and everybody loves them. So you put 172 rockers on a stock Fox cam, and you're at B cam. You're at the same B cam level as far as lift is concerned. Here's another one. You can't change. You have to change. This is a big misconception, and I'm going to tell you this right now. You can't make power. You have to change injectors to make more power. It's bogus. Now, I'm keeping it in the realm of naturally aspirated cars. I'm keeping it in the realm of, you know, HCI, naturally aspirated cars. Like, I had somebody make a comment in one of my videos earlier that said, you know, you go to 24-pound injectors and you'll make more power. That's absolutely incorrect. Like 19-pound injectors don't even max out at 280, 300 wheel. Now they get close, but what did I tell you earlier? Your car stops making power at around 52, 5,300 anyways, and you're not out of injector there. So if you aren't out of injector at 6,000, then why would you change your 19s? Now the fatty ones, the old fatty ones are a one spray. They had a different type of spray pattern. So if anything, if you kept with your 19s, you would have to, I would definitely want to get the, you want to get the EV6s that have the EV1 plug. So 19-pound injectors, you know, do I tell, are they optimal? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I've had people tell me or try to tell me that on their, you know, lightly modified HCI, naturally aspirated car, that, oh, you got to run 24s to make power. I actually myth busted that, what, like 4 or 5 years ago. It's one of my top videos where we did a dyno experiment where we did 19s versus 24s. And in that video, I swapped injectors on the dyno. And we were using a Pro-M map. I swapped from a stock map to a Pro-M map that was calibrated for 24s. And we actually ended up making 3 more horsepower than we did in the 19s. And the 19s ran better because the Pro-M had a stupid dead spot in the actual map transfer function. So, myth that 17-inch wheels are a good size on a Foxbody. You think so? Wheels are only good size. No, 18s are the best, but I don't run them yet. Notchers are faster than hatches. Interesting. Whew. Are you going to the spring swap meet in Columbus? I'm probably going to make an appearance there for sure, Bobby. Power stops at 5,300. What is the reason? Valve springs? I just think it's airflow. I just, you know, the stock bottom end only moves so much air, my man. And 5,300 is a pretty steep little RPM for a stock motor. So regardless of what air you have up top, it's why you don't put a big cylinder head on top of a stock bottom end motor. You don't put anything, I would never put anything past like a 185 or even a 170, but you could get away with 185s, but you're kind of not utilizing, the full flow of the heads. Does that make sense? Bigger isn't always better. So you do not have to change injectors to make more power. However, you have the more tuning options when you do. So the only time you really want to, you know, when you in the high end, when you get into 42s and 60s and 80s and 160s and 120s and whatever, yes, you're out of fuel, you're out of fuel. But you don't need to change from 19s to 24s ever. Like 24s are just for, not to knock anybody who runs them, but you don't need to run 24s under 300 horsepower. The almighty beacon. Okay, will ported heads help? Is it worth porting? Listen, it's very, very difficult. You would end up paying somebody very good money that knows what they're doing with cast iron. Like, I think T-Moss did a bunch of cast iron. I don't know if he did GT40 heads. I know he was doing all the intakes, and he got it mastered, and even the stock ones. So shout out to T-Moss. If you guys don't know who I'm talking about, guy's been around longer than me doing Foxbody stuff, and he knows his shit when it comes to porting. He's very, very good at it. And I think he did do portings on GT40s and did very well with it. But you still got to pay the man for his time. You know what I mean? So the money and time versus what you can get something else for, you know, it's a pain in the ass to port cast iron. Nice, Smurf. We'll see you soon. Turbo versus supercharger on a stock motor. I get free porting from one of the best there is. There you go. If you get that, if you got that, then you need to do it. Nowadays, you can get cheap Chinese heads for the same or less money. That's correct. Now you can get like bare castings. You know what I know that one of the guys I tune with, you know, he basically said, you know, he basically has it set up to where, you know, he does the. Wait, hang on one second. He does the porting, and he does all the work on like the Chinese head, and then he'll put new guides in it, and he'll put like his own valves and springs, and he'll still have the best stuff like springs and valves and guides in a cast iron aluminum head that he pretty much built himself, and still have less money in it than he would pay for something big. That's a good one, and that's actually on my list. Speed density can't be modified. So in a video that we're doing this week, we talked about Dad's car and what's next. And there's a laundry list of stuff that we have for it. You guys are going to be pretty excited. But the biggest problem that speed density had back in the day was because Ford, and I'm going to give this little tidbit of information to you. The main problem that Ford came up with is the fact that their map sensor was designed specifically for their car. So I don't know if you guys know anything about sensors. Let me talk about the myth first. You can absolutely make good power with speed density. We're lean right now, but we're at 350, 400 wheel on 19-pound injectors on a lightly modified junkyard stock block build on Dad's car, right? It tells you something. If it was a mass air car, it probably would be a little bit different, because then I could have put a different injector in. I could have used a different FMU disc, and it probably would have better air fuel, right? But the whole part of doing this with Dad's car is to do something that I've always been curious about doing from 20 or 30 years ago. I've always been curious, why speed density? Why, you know, that's the myth. You know, that's the misconception. Speed density sucks. No, speed density is actually really cool. And there's a reason why speed density systems nowadays, like the Terminator X is a speed density system. I think the micro squirts, I think they were all speed density. I think everything's speed density now. Like they did away with the whole air meter, vane meter, mass air meter, whatever. But the biggest problem that Ford had, and the biggest problem that Binary Editor had when it came out with its files, is the fact that they never really made a 2-bar, or they never really made a frequency map sensor for a boosted application. So you were pretty much stuck on a speed density car. If you knew somebody who had the files for the computer, you could absolutely tune a cam into it, or other injectors, naturally aspirated. But the biggest problem was the map sensor. So Neil, I can't wait for summer to see you in Dad's car. All right, that's what we're going to do. So long story short, speed density is cool as hell. And I'm going to give you this Easter egg that I'm going to tell you in the video later on this week. I'm actually developing a map sensor that may work with Dad's speed density stock computer, to where I can tune it on that 20-year-old Binary Editor file that I got, and make power and boost, which means that I could put my 30s in and make a little bit more power on a current build, or even put my 42s in and make it work just like a mass air car. Think about it. So give me another one, another misconception Foxbody myth. We got manual better than auto, electric versus clutch fan, solid versus poly, and you can't make power on a stock cam. Turning mass air meter to adjust rich or lean. Yeah, that's a good one. That really wasn't bullshit. Especially on that was more of a boosted application thing. What's that? Polaroid 1. That was more of a boosted application thing, because when the airflow would come out of the intercooler, you know what I mean, it would bounce off the corner wall, and usually you had all the math. If it was draw through, which everybody went away with draw through after a while, but if it was blow through, if you had it clocked a certain way, it was better. Yeah, I like the way speed density drive. I prefer Dad's speed density over any of the mass air, naturally aspirated or lightly modified cars that I had. It just runs better. It runs all the time, starts right up. There's no surging, there's no bullshit. It just runs and it runs. It is what it is. So on my list, I got one for you guys. You have to HCI to make power. Now, we talk about this in a lot of our other. That's a huge misconception, guys. We talked about it last week. If your car's on a jack stand and say you have a turbo kit or you want to buy a turbo kit or you catch one for a good deal, you don't need to buy injectors. You don't need to buy a fuel pump. I mean, you should. I mean, these are some of the mods, 3G alternator, the stuff I just did on Dad's car in the videos. You should be doing that anyways. They're pretty budget for that matter too. But you don't need to put a heads cam intake on it to make power. So say you found like an On3 turbo kit that was cheap and used for like $1,000. You could straight up buy an FMU for like a couple $100 and run your stock little 19-pound injectors on your stock little motor and make probably 340, 350 horsepower, pretty much where I'm at, and not be lean. And do it a lot more budget. I mean, you would have as much money in it just buying a set of heads. So if you want the cam, if you want the heads, if you want the intake, absolutely go get it. It's going to do nothing but make your car faster and better. You're going to make more power. You're going to make the same power with less boost or whatever. But there's always just been a misconception that, man, you got to put these big heads on. You got to put this big cam. You got to put this big intake in. The sound, it's going to sound awesome. But then you got to go get it tuned and make it all work right. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's definitely levels to these things. Myth. From way back, cutting the mesh of your mass air meter will help you get more air. No, absolute myth. Hey, Donnie B, a new Vortec kit costs about the same as a quality HCI kit. Thank you. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm telling you. You can buy a new, out of the box, what is it? Just a V1 trim, right? Just an entry level Heritage Gears supercharger. Okay. And you would make, or even turbo, like I just did with Dad's car. Shit, I built half of that. I have like no money in that. I mean, a couple $100. But you can make more power for less money or the same money and build around it. And that's what we talked about last week. That's what we talked about last week. And you do it with your stock injectors. You can do it with an FMU just to get you rolling. And then you just get your pump done. You get your 3G done. You put gears in your car. You could spend money on a car that's still relatively fast for you to enjoy, seat of the pants. You know what I mean? So I've been preaching that for a long time. So absolutely, you do not need to do an HCI. Now, an HCI will get you a 300 wheel, and then you put boost on that, it'll get you, close to 5 or whatever, 5. But, if you're just looking to get into the game and just, you don't want to get crazy, you don't want to make your Foxbody a race car, you can definitely just go out and buy a kit, install it, and make more horsepower than you would if you bought a heads, cam, and intake, and you're not doing anything but putting it on a stock motor. You should also consider the mileage of the engine, fresh heads, and supporting upgrades. Yeah, I agree. You need to reload your battery to the trunk. That is definitely a myth. I still have my battery in the front of my black car. I run 950s. You have to mass air to do mods. We've already kind of talked about that. So speed density does have tunability. There's plenty of people that's done it. Like I said, I'm actually developing a 2-bar frequency-based map sensor for these old computers that nobody will probably care about, but I just want to see if I can do it. Okay, another big misconception that you'll see when people are selling or buying Fox bodies or whatever, especially Fox body parts, is that all harnesses are interchangeable. Like, I don't know who thought of that. But all harnesses are not interchangeable. It's a huge misconception. Absolutely not interchangeable. And that goes for body. That goes for every harness in a Fox body. So if you're out there trying to build a Fox body, trying to put things together, and somebody stripped it to a shell, best thing for you to do is get all the harnesses from one car. And preferably, you know, if you don't have any harnesses, it doesn't matter what year you get it from, because all it does is run off itself. So all you have to do is just make sure everything's ground and ran correctly. But there is a bunch of harnesses that do not interchange. And the problem is, I don't know how many people, and it's just confusing. It really is. But it's a big misconception. It's probably one of the biggest misconceptions, is your harnesses aren't interchangeable from so many years. So, you know, 87, 89, pretty much all of them are interchangeable. In order for you to do a 4-cylinder to V8 swap, you got to do a, you know, you got to change front headlight harness. You got to change the O2 harness. There's a lot of little things in that. That's why I'll be carb swapping for now. Then I'll do a Terminator X. All right. Nitrous blows motors myth. Nitrous is a badass. It's just expensive. What you got here? Silicone hoses and fluidine radiators are a must, is not a myth. 67 millimeter on 3 HCI, 5200, 600, 54, 6092 torque, high sniper 1200 stock block, only 40 over stock replacement pistons, dyno shop. Is that a dyno jet? Myth, removing power steering is worth the, no. You might gain like 5 horsepower. And shout out to War Admiral, because he's probably got one of the best looking coupes I've ever seen. So, sitting right here in my chat. If you guys don't know who he is, go check him out on Instagram. But his coupe is meticulous. It's beautiful. So, I'll take my power steering. I'll take the 5 horsepower hit and drag. Andrew, I hope you're not buying a new carburetor. There's 75% there in the cost of the X. That's right. At least a good one. You can't race a street car. What is a street car? I'm not going to talk about that. I'll take my AC. Yeah, the AC really is just, you know, it's an idler at that point. You know, if it's not engaged or your AC is not switches turned on, then it's not even. It's just an extra pulley. I mean, worst case scenario, your belt's 5 inches longer. Big whoop-de-doo, right? But you know, I don't run any AC on my cars. I live in Ohio, and naturally, I can't even get it to stop snowing here in late March. So you know, we don't run too hot around here. You know, we might have a month of 90-degree weather, and then everyone buys up all the water and acts like they're in a big drought. It's ridiculous. Go ahead and hit me up with chat. I'm going to stop talking about my list. I want to talk about your guys' list. And, you know, big myths, big misconceptions of Fox bodies that you guys want to talk about. Can a 4-cylinder AC work on a V8 car? I don't think so. I've actually never done that before. Interesting. So we're going to spend the last, 10 or 15 minutes, talking about what you guys want to talk about. So if you got something that's not related to the myths or misconceptions, you can go ahead and hit me up as well. Street car become race car when they decide to race. I race my cars consistently, but that's an argument for itself. What actually deems a street car? Like I have insurance on my car. I drive my car every day. Well, in the nice weather. I love driving my Foxbody. Then I'll put some slicks on it, go out there, run a 9. That doesn't make it a race car, I don't think. I don't know how put this to myth, but delete the rag joint. Yes. Now, how to put this into a myth? Just yes, we're going to be talking about that in one of my videos. Trust me. Jay, no sir, I ran 60 over on 302 for years. Now they run a little bit hot. A 60 over motor will run a little bit hot because the water jackets are small. Always racing. That's right. That's right. So give me some more misconceptions. Well, that's what we're talking about tonight. What's a street car, race car for a whole live in itself? That yes, that topic is, there's a no win to that topic. It's a great topic to talk about if you keep it, you know, you keep it on wraps. You know, there's some people that will get mad about, well, what's a street car versus what's a race car? Because you start getting into, you know, feelings aren't facts. Just because you feel a car a race car doesn't make it a fact. Or just because you think that's a street car and it's not a race car, it doesn't make it a fact. And, you know, it just, you get into this big pandering of hating each other at the end because, you know, people's feelings get hurt because their car, you know, their car's a street car, but it's not a street car, but it is a street car. It doesn't matter. So that's its own topic of discussion. That's a sensitive topic for sure. Your thoughts on using 4-cylinder lines with a return style regulator on a carb? Absolutely. There's not a lot of pressure in the 4-cylinder on a carb setup. You're looking at what, like 7 or 8 psi on a feed. You run a SSR to your Holly for a bump box. 3 gear. Monster Tack sucks is definitely a myth. Listen, I got a Monster Tack on 3 of my dashes because when you're in that, when you're racing and you're in that G-force moment, you need a big tack and a light telling you when to shift. Trust me. Highway patrol cars had more horsepower and chip in their computer. That's untrue. They had the same computers we did. The interceptor chip wasn't. That was just a. If you run a fuel cutoff, are you really a street car? You talking about the thing, the push in, push out thing in the back taillight? What's up, B-Rad? What's up, B-Rad? I plan on using 4-cylinder lines. Okay, running off, shut up on your street car. Tell me you drag race. Tell me you, yeah, tell me you drag race without telling me you drag race. Well, just look at my dash. It all works. We got about 10 more minutes or so, guys. So if you got something you want to talk about. I mean, what do you guys think about the, I mean, was it a pretty good live? I mean, that was a good, I kind of came up with that at the, today, and I was doing a little bit of research, and I just kind of was just shooting it from the hip. There's a lot of things you could talk about, myths and misconceptions of Fox bodies. But one thing is for sure, you know, we own a piece of history. You know, you got a piece of history sitting in your garage. If you're probably in this live chat right now, it's probably because you're a big avid Fox body owner and lover of your car. So, you know, the prices aren't going anywhere. That's always a hot topic. I could have talked about that the whole time. But, yeah, I mean, if anything, they're just going to get more popular, you know? You got prime time spot and you don't ever miss a day. That's right. It was just, if you're talking about my live stream, this is just, you know, I don't think anybody was live streaming. I think Tip tried it. Now, I did want to shout out to Chris over at the Infamous Project. He's been putting up some really good videos. I've been talking to him a little bit. But I know he talked about going back. He used to live stream years ago, he said. I know he said he talked about trying to go back to doing it. I appreciate that, George. Yeah, I don't try to waste your guys' time. When I get up there on live stream, I do yap a lot. I do miss a lot of comments and whatever, but it gives you a chance to engage with some of the, you know, some content creators on YouTube, and, you know, we get to talk about Fox bodies, and you can hit me up with some of the stuff that you might be curious about. It's always a wonderful day. Picked up another 92, car's excellent condition, doesn't have a heated core, AC, ductwork, or controls. How big of a pain in the ass is that? Oh, here, it could be anything, B-Rad. You pretty much need a whole heater box for the most part. But it should, at that point, you should go ahead and change the heater core and the AC thing too. But you have to actually glue it back together. Everyone have a good one. All right, see you, Jenny. Your thoughts on a Kenny Bell on a stock 302? Absolutely, dude. You're talking about the root style? You're talking about the old 2 the old one, whatever that sits on the top of the motor? What is that? What's that called? Is that like a 2.2 or something? 2.0? I don't know. Absolutely. They make about 320, 330 horsepower. T5 third, you explained. I appreciate that, War Admiral. You know, I just try to, you know, I figure these live streams, the nice things about live streams is I can just go back to them at a later date and actually make a video about it. And then, you know, because the live streams don't get anywhere near the analytic that actual videos do. So like when you put out a video, you know, it gets put up on a conveyor belt and gets shot up into the moon and, you know, not figuratively speaking. And, you know, people, whether they like it or not, you know, it could go viral. It could do a lot of things. But like live streams are kind of like, this is just it. Like people are going to be able to go back and watch my live stream for a while, but it's an hour and a half long and it's tough to watch something for an hour and a half straight. That's like 2 years old. So they don't get the same, you know, usually the only sort of monetization that even happens usually happens during or right after the live stream. You see what I mean? So it's definitely don't want to waste anybody's time. I did get a new member today though. So shout out to Robert Dreamer for joining the actual highest tier of memberships. So I do appreciate you, man. Neil, what do you think? Blue Collar Fox, what do you think of the best sounding Mustang ever? My vote is 0304 Cobras. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. 0304 Cobras just rumbled really well. Robert C, when you mod your car, it lowers the value. Not yet. I don't believe in that. It depends on what kind of mods that are done. At that point, I mean, there's a lot of resto mod Fox bodies that are out there that are done really well that actually are worth more than an original. But that's where you start getting into the Fox body prices. I did see a red on red hatchback that had like 7,000 miles. Somebody was asking like, you know, 22, 25,000 for it, but it was a bubble car. I mean, 7,000 miles on 35-year-old car is like driving it like 10 miles a day or 10 miles a year or something. It's just not driven. So it's probably not even been a screw out of that car yet, you know, from anywhere. Neo, my T5 pops out of first and second at times after I put it together. Probably have a bad slider. You going to FTO again? Yes. Resto mods are 100K plus. Yes, I'm telling you, it's just, that's where we're at. Resto mods and restoration itself, that's where we're at with still here. Hello. Thumbs up. Everything good? It's still snowing here in Ohio, so we're going to have some, it happens to me every week. Myth, GT40 tubulars are cheap. That is a myth. Yeah, you guys know that happens. I haven't been cut off, knock on wood, I haven't been cut off on a live stream with the internet in a long time. So ever since I switched to StreamYard. So anyways, if anybody's got any more questions, got about 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes. What we got? Yeah. Who looks fussy? Me? I'm good. Has anyone made a T-top swap? Yes. Hey guys, I'm a little late to the party. Best fuel pressure regulator. Just had my BBK take a shit on me. Aeromotive. That's a good one. Donnie B still in chat. You can contact Anderson Ford Motorsports. He'll probably hook you up. Not for free, but you know what I mean. Hotel recommendations for Ford Takeover. I'm going to be honest with you. I think I'm just going to hit up the same place I was at last time. God, I can't even remember the name of it. See you, Jenny. It's good seeing you. I appreciate it. I'm going to probably be at Ford Takeover is so you guys don't know, if you're anywhere in the Midwest or in the South area, Eastern, Midwest, is that right? Whatever. Foxcast Media puts on, I think it's his year 6. He puts on a big Ford Takeover event where he does like a dyno thing. He does car cruises. He does car show. And we go to a track. So a lot of vendors are going to be there. It's getting bigger and bigger every year, like Foxtoberfest is. And if you get a chance, it's in Tennessee. It's in June 11th and 12th. Just look up FTO and or Ford Takeover. He hasn't told me to tell you that. I just do that because out of respect for Foxcast and Caleb's channel and for the subscribers who naturally are subscribed to lots of channels that are with it. So definitely going to be a good time. I'm going to be there. I know Brutal's going to be there. I know Foxcast obviously is running the place or running the show, but you know, you're going to see other content creators like you might see Gearhead 704 there. You might see Blue Oval Media there. You know, you might see some of the other Foxbody channels like I think Funky 5.0 comes down. Some of the other ones that you might be I think Infamous Project's coming this year. I don't think Chris went last year. We'll find out. But there'll be a lot of us content creators there, so you'll be able to see a lot of us, and hang out and talk to us. So it'll be really cool. But I stayed at, I can't even remember. It was right there outside of Concord. It was really nice because me and my girlfriend got to drive around on Concord streets. It was really cool. There was Mustangs everywhere. It's a bad spot. So I did want to tell you that I'm probably going to hit Chocolate Fox this year. Maybe. I'm painting my hood and my bumper for my white car. The wheels that I want to put on it are on back order. So I might end up putting the black car's wheels on it just to look cool. So I want to bring a different car to Chocolate Fox. It's in May. And it's only like 4.5, 5 hours from me. But it's just a car show. It's not really, I think they will have a dyno thing there. But I don't know that yet. But yeah. Yeah, the Foxtober, the Ford Takeover is all Fords. Anyone have a V8 drive shaft they want to sell or ship? I need one so I can make it to FTO. I stayed at a hotel with rats. Jeez, oh Pete. Yeah, the Kenny Bell makes decent power, but watch the heat. Yeah, it does. It definitely heats those for sure. So, what else we got coming up? So, I am waiting on a couple turbo housings for my black and my white car, but our track is getting renovated here, so I'm looking really forward to being able to make a little bit more horsepower on that turbo right there behind me. The housing's a little bit small, so I think if I put a larger housing on, I'm going to be able to get rid of some of that pressure in the back. So if they got a dyno coming, that's going to be really cool. I'm actually coming to Chocolate Fox with my white car because I want to bring my white car to a couple of the events, and I want to take my black car to a couple of events. This will also buy me time to get the black car painted because I've been talking about getting it painted. Usually I do my own paint or whatever, but I'm actually in a position where I got a really good deal from a very reputable painter. He's going to take care of me in the car. And, the car isn't really a mess to begin with, but it's an original paint. I mean, it's 1990 original paint that's been drag raced and street driven for so many years. So, yeah, we already covered that, J Dollar. That is definitely not the limit. A C4 and T5 drive shaft are the same, right? I'm pretty sure, yes. Neo, we need a Fox show in Ohio. Now, I'm glad you brought that up. So what we might end up doing, what we are going to do, is we're going to do a dyno day. And what that basically consists of is I'm going to pre-register 5 Mustangs. So if you guys sometime in this summer and fall want your car tuned over here at my dyno, then I'm going to pre-register your car or pre-qualify your car, because I don't want your car sitting there on a dyno and we have to tinker with it for 3 hours to get it to run right. So I'm going to try to make sure that it has at least the proper, I don't know, startup tune and everything's working so we can tune it. But we are going to do a dyno day where there's 5 cars that are going to show up on a Saturday, and we're going to even make it so if something happens to your car on the dyno or before the dyno that gets it from not tuning, that will carry it over into Sunday. So probably going to do that. If you're interested in getting your car tuned, it's going to be something, you know, it could be anywhere between $7 and $850 if you have a Terminator X and boost, you know, but we'll get it right. I mean, this is the same stuff that we tune with my white and my black car, and I haven't actually retuned my white and my black car in probably a year and a half. So, you know, and I've done little tinker mods to it or whatever. But if it's something you guys be interested in, hit me up at Neomustangs at Hotmail about a dyno day. And I'll keep mentioning it as the year goes on, but we'll probably do it around the fall area to get some, you know, gain a little bit of traction to it. You know, and I can announce the date that it's happening, and if anybody wants to show up, it's fine. Yes, pre-register my Warlord Fox. I'm going for 600 horsepower and just need a couple more weeks. All right. All right, Frank James, I appreciate you coming in. All right, guys, so I'll give you about another 60 seconds to ask any questions that you have of the channel. While you do that, I am going to tell you what's coming up. I got a video this week with the what's next with Dad's car. I have a video. We're going to have some good weather, so I'm going to be able to test some of the things that I'm changing on it. So it's definitely something interesting. I hope you guys enjoy Dad's car, because it's about the journey. You know, when you're building your Foxbody, I've always wanted to mess with the speed density car. I've always wanted to mess with the tuning side of it and figure out why it sucks so bad. And to be honest with you, I'm finding out that it's not as bad as I thought. So, you know, I've already got cars that make really good horsepower. I've already got cars that I enjoyed the shit out of for many years. So it's kind of like renewing, you know, going back and doing some of the stuff that I never got to do with those cars. You see what I mean? So I hope you guys actually enjoy. I hope you guys actually enjoy the, you know, the stuff that we're doing. I mean, you know, we're not trying to shoot. Sure, we can go right to Terminator X, right? But I'm not trying to jump to the end game yet. You know, there's some things I want to learn. So anyways, all right. So without further ado, guys, I appreciate, we'll do some maintenance real quick. I want to shout out to Handler Motorsports again, my cousin Paul and my cousin Fred that help me on a daily basis, and Smurfit here in channel. And guys, I just want to thank you for joining me here on a live stream and listening to me ramble for an hour and a half. It's you guys are the reason why I come here, man. You guys are the reason why I show up every Sunday and we talk some shit about some Fox bodies, man. So I know I talk a lot. I talk enough to lose my voice, but I do appreciate everybody who has joined the channel tonight. So if you get a chance, hit that join button. Check me out on some club membership. If you guys are interested in some merch, the stuff that I actually wear, that's actually premium stuff. It's not screen print. Neomustangs at hotmail.com. You can hit me up. Like I said, I shipped about 10 hats last week. I only have about 8 left, and I only have about 30 or 40 t-shirts of various sizes left. So Neomustangs at hotmail.com. You can buy some merch, and we'll go from there. Outside of that, I just appreciate you guys subscribing. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you this week in the videos coming up. Have a good night.